I'd rehearsed the words 1,000 times. David, I want a divorce. Simple. Clean. Final. But as I sat across from my husband of 12 years at our kitchen table that Tuesday morning, watching him scroll through his phone with the same detached expression he'd worn for months, the words dissolved on my tongue like sugar in rain. He didn't even look up when I cleared my throat. The distance between us had become a chasm so wide that I wondered if he'd even notice when I finally disappeared into it. I'm meeting Claire for coffee, I said instead, my voice flat. David murmured, his eyes never leaving the screen. I grabbed my purse and left without saying goodbye. He didn't notice that either. The November air bit at my cheeks as I walked the 3 blocks to Riverside Cafe, our usual spot. Claire was already there, her red hair pulled back, 2 steaming mugs on the table. She knew me well enough to see the decision written all over my face before I even sat down. You're really going to do it, she said quietly. I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. I can't keep living like roommates who occasionally share a bed. We don't talk anymore, Claire. Not really. We exist in parallel lines that never touch. Have you tried? Everything. I cut her off, not unkindly. Therapy. Date nights. Honest conversations that go nowhere. He's not the man I married, and I don't think I'm the woman he wanted me to become. Claire reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and I felt the weight of my decision settling into my bones. It wasn't anger anymore. It was just done. That's when the bell above the cafe door chimed. I wouldn't have looked up at all if Claire's eyes hadn't suddenly widened, her gaze fixed on something over my shoulder. The expression on her face made my stomach drop. It was the look of someone witnessing a car accident in slow motion. Emma, she whispered. Don't turn around. Not yet. Of course, I turned around. The woman standing in the doorway was probably in her mid-60s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and the kind of elegant posture that suggested old money. She wore a navy peacoat and carried a leather bag that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. But it wasn't her appearance that made my heart start hammering against my ribs. It was the way she was staring directly at me. Not past me. Not near me. At me. With an expression of such profound recognition that it felt like being seen naked. Do you know her? Claire hissed. I've never seen her before in my life. But even as I said it, something flickered in the back of my mind. Something familiar in the set of her jaw, the particular blue of her eyes. Before I could place it, she was walking toward our table with the purposeful stride of someone on a mission. My hands went cold. Emma Hartley, she said when she reached us. Not a question. A statement. Her voice carried the crisp diction of someone educated at expensive schools. I'm sorry, do I know you? My voice came out steadier than I felt. No. She pulled out the empty chair at our table without asking permission and sat down. But I know you. I've known about you for exactly 7 years, for months and 13 days. Claire and I exchanged glances. This woman was either dangerously unstable or about to deliver news that would shatter something. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to grab Claire and walk out, to preserve the simple narrative of my failing marriage and impending divorce. But I stayed frozen in my seat. I don't understand, I managed. My name is Catherine Ashford, she said, folding her hands on the table. And 7 years ago, my daughter gave birth to a baby boy. She was 19, terrified, and absolutely certain she couldn't raise a child. Her eyes never left mine, blue and unwavering. So she gave him up for adoption. To a couple named David and Emma Hartley. The world tilted sideways. My coffee mug slipped from my nerveless fingers, shattering on the floor in an explosion of ceramic and liquid. Several heads turned toward us, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. That's not possible, I whispered. We've never adopted. The adoption was handled privately, Catherine continued, her voice gentle but relentless. Through a lawyer named Richard Bennett. The baby was born on March 15th, 7 years ago, at Mercy General Hospital. He weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces. He had a small birthmark on his left shoulder blade, shaped like a comma. My son. She was describing my son, Noah. But Noah wasn't adopted. Noah was mine. Born after 3 years of fertility treatments and 2 heartbreaking miscarriages. I had the hospital records, the birth certificate with my name on it, the memories of David pacing the delivery room while I screamed through contractions. Didn't I? You're insane, Claire said, standing up. Emma, we're leaving. Now. But I couldn't move. Because somewhere in the chaos of my thoughts, a memory was surfacing. A conversation I'd overheard 6 months ago when I picked Noah up early from school. His teacher, Mrs. Peterson, asking another parent in hushed tones, "Isn't it amazing how much Noah looks like David? You'd never know he was adopted." I'd dismissed it as a case of mistaken identity. People confused kids and parents all the time. But what if it wasn't a mistake? "I don't understand," I said again, hating how small my voice sounded. "Even if what you're saying is true, and I'm not saying it is, why are you here? Why now?" Catherine reached into her leather bag and pulled out a manila envelope. She placed it on the table between us, her hand trembling slightly. It was the first sign of emotion she'd shown. "Because my daughter is dying," she said simply. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She has maybe 3 months left, and before she goes, she wants to meet her son. She wants him to know she didn't abandon him out of cruelty, but out of love. She was a child herself with no support and no resources. The envelope sat between us like a bomb. And she sent you to, what? Ask permission." "No." Catherine's voice hardened. "I came to tell you that my daughter has rights. Biological rights that can't be erased by whatever arrangement you made with Richard Bennett. I came to tell you that if you don't let her meet Noah voluntarily, I have lawyers prepared to make this very public and very messy." My brain felt like it was splitting in two. One half still insisted this was impossible, a delusion, a scam. The other half was cataloging every strange inconsistency about Noah's birth. The fact that I had no clear memories of the actual delivery, just blurry fragments I'd attributed to the epidural. The way David had been oddly secretive about the hospital bills. The adoption comment from Mrs. Peterson. Why does David get to decide everything about our son's life? The thought rose unbidden, bitter and sharp. Because if Catherine was telling the truth, then my entire marriage was built on a lie. And David had been the architect. "I need to see proof," I said finally. "Medical records. DNA tests. Something more than your word." Catherine nodded, pushing the envelope toward me. "It's all in there. Birth records. The original adoption papers with both your signatures. Photos of my daughter holding Noah hours after he was born. My signatures. Plural." My hand shook as I reached for the envelope. Before I could open it, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from David. "Running late tonight. Don't wait up." Same message he'd sent 3 times this week. The same distance, the same absence, the same slow death of our marriage. Except now I wondered if our marriage had ever truly been alive at all. "When did you plan to tell me the truth?" I asked Catherine, though I was really asking David, asking the universe, asking whatever force had decided to detonate my life in a coffee shop on a random Tuesday. "I'm telling you now," Catherine said. "And you have 48 hours to make a decision. My daughter's name is Victoria. She lives in Portland and she's running out of time." She stood up, leaving the envelope on the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. 48 hours, Emma. After that, my lawyers will be in touch with both you and David. I'd prefer to handle this quietly for Noah's sake. But one way or another, my daughter will meet her son before she dies." Catherine walked out of the cafe, leaving me sitting in a puddle of spilled coffee with an envelope full of truths I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Claire's hand found mine across the table, gripping tight. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked down at the envelope, then at my phone with David's dismissive text still glowing on the screen. "I'm going to find out if my entire life has been a lie," I said. And then I was going to discover that the truth was so much worse than I could have possibly imagined. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing your locations. Now back to the story. I drove home in a daze, Catherine's envelope burning like hot coal in my passenger seat. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every turn brought a new wave of nausea. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, and I kept replaying her words. "Both your signatures. I would remember signing adoption papers. Wouldn't I?" The house was empty when I arrived, David's car gone, Noah still at school for another 2 hours. I stood in our foyer, looking at the framed photos lining the walls. Noah as a newborn, his tiny fist wrapped around David's finger. Noah's first birthday, chocolate cake smeared across his cherubic face. Noah and me at the zoo, feeding giraffes, both of us laughing. In every photo he looked happy. Loved. Real. But were the memories real? Or had they been constructed around a lie? I carried the envelope to the kitchen table and sat down, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. For a long moment, I just stared at it, sealed and innocent. Once I opened it, there would be no going back. Schrodinger's marriage. simultaneously real and fraudulent until I looked inside. I tore it open. The first document was a birth certificate. Noah David Ashford, born March 15 at 3:47 a.m., Mercy General Hospital. Mother, Victoria Lynn Ashford. Father, unknown. I read it 3 times, looking for any sign of forgery. The paper felt authentic, slightly worn at the edges. The hospital stamp looked genuine. But more damning was the baby's footprint at the bottom, impossibly tiny, inked in faded blue. I ran upstairs to Noah's baby book, the one I'd carefully compiled with first photos and milestone cards. I flipped to the hospital keepsake page, where I'd tucked away his newborn footprint. The prints matched. Exactly. My stomach heaved, and I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited. When I could stand again, I went back downstairs on shaking legs. The next document in the envelope made my blood run cold. It was an adoption agreement dated March 17, 2 days after Noah's birth. The language was formal, legal, permanent. And there, at the bottom, were 2 signatures. David's, bold and confident. And mine. Except I'd never seen this document before in my life. The signature looked like mine, the same loop on the E, the same sharp angle on the H. But I had no memory of writing it. None. This can't be real, I whispered to the empty kitchen. But my hands were already reaching for the photographs. There were 3 of them, clearly taken in a hospital room. A young woman with dark hair and exhausted eyes, holding a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. The same woman pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead, tears streaming down her face. The woman handing the baby to someone outside the frame, her expression absolutely destroyed. I flipped the last photo over. Written on the back in faded ink, Victoria and Noah, March 15. I love you forever. I'm sorry. The baby in the photos had the same comma-shaped birthmark on his shoulder that Noah had. The same dark hair. The same tiny nose. My phone rang, making me jump. David's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hey, he said casually. Just wanted to let you know I'll definitely be late. Jenkins wants to go over the Morrison account. David. My voice came out hoarse. We need to talk. Can it wait? I'm literally walking into the meeting. It can't wait. Something in my tone must have registered because he paused. Is everything okay? Is Noah? Noah is fine. But I need you to come home. Right now. Emma, I can't just. Is our son adopted? The question exploded out of me. Silence. Not the silence of confusion, but the silence of someone who'd just been caught. What are you talking about? He said finally, but his voice had changed. Gone was the casual dismissiveness. Now he sounded careful. Guarded. A woman named Catherine Ashford came to see me today. She says her daughter gave birth to Noah 7 years ago. She has documents, David. Birth certificates. Photos. Adoption papers with both of our signatures. More silence. David, tell me it's not true. Tell me this woman is insane and trying to scam us. I can't do that, he whispered. The kitchen floor seemed to drop out from under me. I gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. What did you do? My voice broke on the last word. I saved us, he said, and now his voice was rising, defensive. Do you remember how destroyed you were after the second miscarriage? You couldn't get out of bed for weeks. You stopped eating. You talked about not wanting to live anymore. So you what? Bought a baby? No. God, no. It wasn't like that. I heard him moving, probably finding somewhere private. Richard Bennett, my college roommate, remember him? He called me out of nowhere. Said he had a client, a young woman with an unplanned pregnancy who wanted a private adoption. Someone from a good family who didn't want to go through an agency. He thought of us immediately. And you didn't think to tell me? You were fragile, Emma. The doctors said another failed pregnancy could trigger a complete breakdown. When Richard called, it felt like a miracle. A chance to give you the baby you desperately wanted without the risk. I was shaking now, full body tremors I couldn't control. So you forged my signature on legal documents? I didn't forge it. His voice dropped. You signed them. I have no memory of that. Because you were on medication. The words came out in a rush now, like he'd been waiting 7 years to explain this. Dr. Morrison had you on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. You weren't sleeping. You barely knew what day it was. I brought the papers to you one night, told you they were for some routine hospital billing from the miscarriage. You signed them without really looking. Horror washed over me in waves. You drugged me and tricked me into signing adoption papers? I gave you the family you wanted. Look at us, Emma. Look at Noah. He's happy. You're happy, or you were before whatever this is. Does it really matter how he came to us? Yes. I screamed into the phone. It matters that you lied to me for 7 years. It matters that our son has a biological mother dying of cancer who wants to meet him. It matters that our entire marriage is built on fraud. Who told you she's dying? His voice sharpened with suspicion. Catherine, Victoria's mother. She says Victoria has 3 months to live, and she wants to meet Noah before. Absolutely not. David's voice went cold and hard. I don't care what sob story they're selling. Noah is our son. Legally, permanently ours. Victoria signed away her rights. She doesn't get to change her mind 7 years later just because she's sick. She was 19. She was old enough to make a decision. And she made it. I looked down at the photo of Victoria holding newborn Noah, her face ravaged with grief and love. David, she's dying. Then she should have thought of that before she gave away her baby. The cruelty in his voice made me see my husband clearly for the first time in years. Maybe the first time ever. This man who'd stolen my agency, falsified documents, and gaslit me into believing I'd given birth to a child I'd never carried. This man was capable of anything. Where are you? I asked quietly. Why? Because I want you to come home so we can discuss this in person. There's nothing to discuss. My answer is no. Noah will never meet Victoria, and if Catherine Ashford tries to push this, I'll bury her in legal fees until she gives up. Richard is still my lawyer. He knows how to make problems disappear. Noah deserves to know the truth. Noah deserves to have a stable childhood, not to be traumatized by some dying woman claiming to be his real mother. She is his real mother. No, David said flatly. You are. You're the one who's raised him, loved him, tucked him in every night. Biology is just DNA. Family is what you build. You don't get to decide this alone. Actually, Emma, I do. Check the adoption papers. I'm listed as the primary adoptive parent. Your signature was technically optional, just to make the arrangement look better for the courts. If you want to walk away from this marriage, and I've known for weeks that you do, then walk away. But Noah stays with me. The line went dead. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to silence and trying to process what had just happened. David knew I wanted a divorce. Of course he did. We'd been dying slowly for months, and neither of us had been subtle about it. But now, with this revelation, everything had changed. If I left him, I might lose Noah, my son, regardless of biology. David had lawyers, money, and documents proving he was the primary legal parent. He could paint me as unstable, bring up my history of depression and anxiety, argue that I wasn't fit to parent. And worse, if I told Noah the truth about his adoption, David could claim I was trying to alienate him from his father, sabotage their relationship. I was trapped. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Have you looked at the documents? We should talk. I stared at her message, then at the scattered papers on my kitchen table, then at the photo of Victoria and baby Noah. That's when I remembered something David had said years ago, back when we'd first bought this house. He'd insisted on having a safe installed in the basement. For important documents, he'd explained. Birth certificates, property deeds, insurance policies. I'd found it odd at the time. We weren't the type of people who kept cash or valuables at home. But he'd been adamant, and I'd been too depressed about our fertility struggles to argue. Now I wondered what else was in that safe. I walked downstairs on autopilot, my mind racing. The basement was David's domain. He'd converted half of it into a home office during the pandemic. The safe was hidden behind a false panel in the wall, the kind you'd see in a spy movie. I'd only opened it twice. Once when we added Noah's birth certificate, the fake one I now realized, and once when we updated our will. But I didn't know the combination. Or did I? David wasn't creative with passwords. He used the same variations for everything. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the notes section where I'd stored various account information over the years. There, his banking password. A combination of his birth year, my birth year, and our anniversary month. I tried it on the safe. It clicked open. Inside were exactly the kinds of documents you'd expect. Property deed to the house, our marriage certificate, Noah's medical records, investment account statements. But tucked in the back in a separate manila envelope marked RB Private, was something else. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were emails. Dozens of them, printed and filed chronologically. All from Richard Bennett to David, spanning from 7 years ago to as recently as 3 months ago. I started reading. The early emails were logistical, discussing Victoria's pregnancy, the adoption timeline, payment structures. But one phrase kept appearing. Additional compensation for discretion. David had paid Victoria. A lot. $20,000 at the time of birth, deposited in an account Richard had set up. Then monthly payments of $1,000 for the first 3 years, to ensure no future contact or complications, as Richard phrased it. But 3 months ago, the payments had stopped. The last email from Richard was brief. David, Victoria has ceased cashing the monthly payments. Her mother contacted my office asking about the adoption. I advised her we have no information to share, but she's persistent. We may want to consult about next steps. David's response, printed below. Continue denying any knowledge. If pushed, we'll claim the adoption was through a different attorney. The paperwork trail is clean. There's no way to trace it back to us. Except there was. Because Catherine had found us. I was holding the evidence in my hands. Proof that David had essentially bought Noah, paid Victoria to stay silent, and constructed an elaborate deception that he'd maintained for 7 years. My phone rang again. This time it was Noah's school. Mrs. Hartley? This is Principal Davidson. I'm calling because Noah's been involved in an incident on the playground. He's fine physically, but he's quite upset. Can you come pick him up? What kind of incident? He got into an altercation with another student. The other child made a comment about Noah being adopted, and Noah became very aggressive. He pushed the child and said some concerning things. We think it's best if he comes home for the rest of the day. My blood ran cold. What did he say? He said. Principal Davidson hesitated. He said, my mom and dad are liars, and I'm going to find my real parents. The world stopped spinning. I'll be right there, I whispered. As I grabbed my keys and ran for the car, one thought crystallized with perfect, terrible clarity. Noah already knew. Somehow, some way, our 7-year-old son had discovered the truth we'd been hiding. And when I got to his school and looked into his tear-stained face, he was going to ask me the one question I had no idea how to answer honestly. I broke every speed limit getting to the school. My mind raced faster than my car, trying to piece together how Noah could possibly know. He was 7. We'd been so careful. There were no physical adoption papers lying around, no casual conversations he could have overheard, no relatives who knew the truth, because there were no relatives who knew the truth. Except someone had told him. Or he'd somehow figured it out. Either way, my son was in that principal's office right now, his world crumbling, and I had no script for this conversation. The school secretary waved me through without the usual sign-in procedure, her expression sympathetic. I found Noah in the principal's office, sitting in a chair that was too big for him, his Spider-Man backpack clutched to his chest like a shield. His eyes were red and swollen, his cheeks blotchy from crying. When he saw me, his face crumpled. Mom, he sobbed and launched himself at me. I caught him, pulling him tight against me, and he buried his face in my shoulder. He smelled like the apple shampoo I'd used on him that morning, like the banana he'd had for breakfast, like my son. My boy. Mine, regardless of what any document said. It's okay, baby, I whispered. It's okay. It's not okay. He pulled back, looking up at me with David's eyes, except they weren't David's eyes, I realized with a jolt. They were Victoria's. The same deep brown, the same long lashes. Connor said I was adopted. He said his mom told him that I'm not really yours, and that you and Dad are liars. Principal Davidson cleared her throat. Mrs. Hartley, perhaps we should speak privately first. No. I kept my eyes on Noah. Whatever needs to be said, my son should hear it. I knelt down so I was at eye level with him. His lower lip was trembling, and I could see the question forming even before he asked it. Mom, is it true? Am I adopted? Every parenting book I'd ever read, every article about adoption and honesty, every piece of conventional wisdom said the same thing. Tell the truth. Children can handle difficult truths if you present them with love and age-appropriate language. But those books didn't account for this. For a secret kept for 7 years, for a husband who'd threatened to take my son away if I spoke, for a dying woman waiting in Portland for an answer. Yes, I said quietly. Noah's face went through several emotions at once, shock, hurt, confusion, and something that looked almost like relief, as if the confirmation of what he'd feared was somehow better than the uncertainty. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was so small. Because. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully while Principal Davidson watched with professional concern. Because your dad and I wanted you to feel completely loved and secure. We were afraid that if you knew, you might feel different, or think we loved you less. We were wrong to keep it secret. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Do you know my real mom? He asked, and the question hit me like a punch to the sternum. I'm your real mom, I said, probably too sharply. I took a breath, modulated my tone. I'm the mom who raised you, who loves you. But yes, there's another woman who gave birth to you. Her name is Victoria. Noah's eyes went wide. You know her name? I just found out today, actually. The truth felt strange on my tongue after so many years of lies. I'm still learning about all of this myself. Principal Davidson shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Hartley, I think perhaps this conversation would be better continued at home. Where is she? Noah interrupted, grabbing my hands. Does she want to meet me? Can I see her? The desperation in his voice broke something in me. This wasn't a child asking out of casual curiosity. This was a child who'd been carrying questions he didn't even know how to articulate, who'd felt the wrongness of the narrative around his birth, even if he couldn't name it. She does want to meet you, I said slowly. But it's complicated, Noah. Your dad and I need to talk about it first. Dad said I'm not allowed to meet her. I froze. What? I heard him on the phone this morning. Before you woke up. He was talking to someone about a lady who wanted to meet me, and he said no way, never, over his dead body. Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. Is she bad? Is that why he doesn't want me to meet her? My heart was racing. David had known about Catherine's visit before it happened. Which meant, what? That Catherine had contacted him first? That Richard had warned him? She's not bad, I said firmly. She's actually very sick. She's dying, sweetheart. And before she dies, she wants to meet you and tell you that she's always loved you, even though she couldn't raise you. Why couldn't she raise me? Because she was very young when you were born, and she didn't have the resources to take care of a baby. So she made a very brave, very loving decision to let another family raise you. She chose us because she wanted you to have a good life. It was the sanitized version, the one that left out money and deception and forged signatures. But it was also true enough for a 7-year-old to understand. Noah processed this, his brow furrowed in concentration. Then he looked up at me with an expression far too mature for his age. Do you want to leave, Dad? The question came out of nowhere, hitting me sideways. Principal Davidson's eyes widened, and she suddenly became very interested in the papers on her desk. Why would you ask that? Because you don't love each other anymore. I can tell. He said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. You sleep in different rooms now. You don't eat dinner together. When you talk to him, your voice sounds tired. Like Ms. Peterson when she has to tell Connor to sit down for the millionth time. Out of the mouths of babes. Your dad and I are going through a difficult time, I said carefully. But that has nothing to do with you. We both love you more than anything. If you get divorced, do I have to choose who I live with? No, baby. No matter what happens between me and your dad, you'll always have both of us. Except I wasn't sure that was true anymore. David's threat echoed in my mind. Noah stays with me. Noah was quiet for a moment then. I want to meet Victoria. Noah. Please, Mom. She's dying. What if she dies and I never got to meet her? What if I never got to ask her why she gave me away, or tell her I turned out okay, or... His voice cracked. What if I never get to tell her it's okay that she couldn't keep me? I looked at my son, this beautiful, empathetic, impossibly wise little boy, and felt something shift inside me. David didn't get to make this decision alone. This was Noah's story, Noah's history, Noah's biological mother. And if Victoria only had 3 months to live, then we were running out of time. Okay, I said quietly. Really? Really? But there are going to be some rules, and your dad and I need to agree on how this happens. Can you give me some time to work that out? Noah nodded vigorously, then threw his arms around my neck. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over his shoulder, I saw Principal Davidson give me a small, approving nod. We drove home in relative silence, Noah processing everything in the way kids do, asking occasional random questions. Does Victoria like Spider-Man? Does she know I can do a cartwheel now? Interspersed with long stretches of quiet contemplation. When we got home, I made him a snack and set him up with his tablet in the living room, then went to the kitchen and called Catherine. She answered on the first ring. Emma. Noah knows, I said without preamble. About the adoption. He overheard David on the phone this morning, and then another student told him at school. He wants to meet Victoria. I heard Catherine's sharp intake of breath. And you're calling to tell me you'll allow it? I'm calling to tell you we need to do this right. I want to meet Victoria first. Alone. I need to look her in the eye and understand what happened 7 years ago before I introduce her to my son. Our son, Catherine corrected gently. My son, I repeated harder this time. Biology is important, but it's not everything. I'm the one who's been there for every fever, every nightmare, every scraped knee. I'm the one he calls for in the middle of the night. That counts for something. I'm not trying to erase you, Emma. None of us are. Victoria doesn't want to take Noah from you. She just wants to meet him, to tell him her story, to give him a piece of his history that you and David kept from him. The accusation stung because it was accurate. When can I meet her? I asked. She's in Portland. Can you travel? I thought about my job. I was a freelance graphic designer, worked from home, set my own hours. I thought about Noah, who was already having an emotionally overwhelming day. I thought about David, who would lose his mind when he found out what I was planning. I can leave tomorrow, I said. But I'm not bringing Noah with me. Not yet. I need to meet Victoria first, assess the situation. That's fair, Catherine said. I'll text you the address and the best time to visit. Victoria has good days and bad days. Tomorrow afternoon should be good. We hung up, and I immediately started making arrangements. I booked a flight to Portland for early the next morning, called Claire and asked if she could stay with Noah for the day, crafted a careful message to David that simply said, "We need to talk when you get home. It's about Noah." Then I went upstairs to Noah's room, where I found him lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. He didn't look at me. "Is Dad going to be mad?" "Probably." "At me." "At me," I corrected. "This isn't your fault, Noah. None of this is your fault. Connor's mom said that my birth mom gave me away because she didn't want me." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Is that true?" I crossed the room and lay down next to him on the bed, both of us staring up at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd stuck to his ceiling 2 years ago. "No, sweetheart. That's absolutely not true. She gave you to us because she loved you so much that she wanted you to have things she couldn't provide. That's the opposite of not wanting you." "How do you know?" "Because tomorrow, I'm going to meet her and ask her myself. And then I'm going to come home and tell you everything she says." Noah rolled onto his side to face me, his eyes searching my face. "Promise?" "I promise." He was quiet for a moment then. "Mom? Do you wish I was really yours? Like from your tummy?" The question shattered me. "Noah, look at me." I waited until his eyes met mine. "You are really mine. You are my son in every way that matters. I would not trade you for any biological child in the universe. Do you understand me? You are exactly the child I was meant to raise. Exactly the child I love." A tear slid down his cheek. "Even though Dad lied about it? Dad thought he was protecting us. He was wrong, but he thought he was doing the right thing. People make mistakes, even dads." "Big mistakes," Noah said. "Very big mistakes." We lay there together until I heard the garage door open. David was home. My stomach clenched, but I kissed Noah's forehead and told him to stay in his room while I talked to his father. Then I went downstairs, steel in my spine, to face the man who'd stolen 7 years of truth from both of us. David was in the kitchen, tie loosened, looking haggard. When he saw me, his expression shifted from exhaustion to defensiveness. "Before you say anything," he started. "Noah knows," I cut him off. The color drained from his face. "What?" "He overheard your phone call this morning. Then Connor Matthews told him at school that he was adopted. The school called me to pick him up because he got in a fight about it." David sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "God damn it. He wants to meet Victoria." "No. That's not your decision to make anymore. He knows the truth now, David. He's asking questions we can't avoid. And he deserves answers. He's 7 years old. He doesn't know what he wants. He knows enough to ask why we lied to him for his entire life." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I'm flying to Portland tomorrow to meet Victoria. I'm going to assess the situation, talk to her, and determine if a meeting between her and Noah is appropriate." "The hell you are." David stood up, his face flushed. "You're not taking Noah to meet some stranger." "I'm not taking Noah. I'm going alone. And this is happening with or without your cooperation, so you can either be part of the solution or you can be the obstacle I have to work around." We stared at each other across the kitchen, years of resentment and unspoken anger crackling between us like static electricity. "If you do this," David said quietly, "if you let that woman into Noah's life, it will destroy this family. This family destroyed itself the moment you decided to build it on lies." His jaw tightened. "Everything I did for you. For us. I saved you, Emma. You were drowning after the miscarriages, and I threw you a lifeline. Noah is that lifeline. And now you want to risk losing him because some dying woman has regrets. I want to give our son the truth. Something you should have given me 7 years ago. You weren't capable of handling the truth 7 years ago." The words hung in the air, ugly and final. "Maybe not," I said softly. But I can handle it now. And so can Noah. I turned to leave, but David's voice stopped me. If you go to Portland, I'm calling Richard. I'm going to make sure that legally, you can't do anything without my consent. You sign those adoption papers, Emma, drugged or not, your signature is on them. And that means I have just as much right to make decisions about Noah's life as you do. Maybe more. I looked back at him, this man I'd once loved, and felt nothing but pity. Go ahead, I said. Call Richard. Call every lawyer in the state. But I'm getting on that plane tomorrow, and I'm meeting the woman who gave birth to my son. And when I come back, I'm going to tell Noah the truth about her, all of it, including the part where his father paid her to stay away. David's face went white. How did you? The safe in the basement. Not as secure as you thought. I left him standing in the kitchen, mouth open, and went upstairs to pack. That night, I lay in bed in the guest room I'd been sleeping in for 3 months, staring at my phone. There was a text from Catherine with Victoria's address and a note. She's looking forward to meeting you. Thank you for giving her this chance. There was a text from Claire. I'll be there at 7 a.m. to stay with Noah. You're doing the right thing. And there was an email from Richard Bennett's law firm, sent at 9:47 p.m., with the subject line, Noah Hartley adoption matter, urgent. I didn't open it. Whatever legal threats it contained could wait until I got back from Portland. Instead, I looked at the photos on my phone. Hundreds of them. Noah's entire life documented in pixels and memory. Noah's first day of kindergarten, gap-toothed and proud. Noah at his first soccer game, covered in mud. Noah last Christmas, opening presents with the kind of pure joy only children can access. In every photo, he was mine. But tomorrow, I would meet the woman who'd given him life, and I would have to reconcile 2 truths that seemed impossible to hold simultaneously. That Noah was my son, and that he was also hers. I fell asleep sometime after midnight, and dreamed of a hospital room where 2 women stood on either side of a baby's bassinet, both reaching for him, both crying, neither willing to let go. If you're still watching right now, you're exactly the kind of viewer I love. Subscribe so I can keep giving you stories that touch your heart. Hit that bell, so you never miss what happens next. The flight to Portland took 2 hours, but it felt like stepping into another dimension. I'd left my house in darkness, kissing Noah's sleeping forehead and avoiding David entirely. Claire had arrived exactly at 7, giving me a fierce hug and a whispered, "You've got this," before I drove to the airport. Now, standing outside a modest craftsman house in a quiet Portland neighborhood, I wondered if I actually did have this. Victoria's house was painted pale yellow with white trim, the kind of house that would photograph well on a real estate listing. The garden was immaculate despite the November chill. Someone had been maintaining it carefully. A wheelchair ramp had been recently installed on the front porch, the wood still fresh and light-colored. I rang the doorbell before I could lose my nerve. Catherine answered, looking somehow smaller and more vulnerable than she had in the coffee shop. "Emma, thank you for coming. Where is she?" "In the living room. She wanted to meet you there, somewhere comfortable. Somewhere that felt less like a sick room." Catherine's voice was thick with emotion. "Emma, before you go in, she looks worse than she did even a week ago. The cancer is aggressive. So please, whatever your feelings about this situation, remember that she's fighting for every day she has left." I nodded, not trusting my voice. The living room was bright with afternoon sun, filled with plants and warm colors. And there, in a recliner by the window, sat Victoria. She was thin in a way that went beyond natural slenderness, the kind of thin that spoke of illness and appetite loss and a body consuming itself. Her dark hair was covered with a soft beanie, and her skin had a grayish pallor. But her eyes, when they met mine, were alert and devastating in their intelligence. "Noah's eyes. Emma," she said, and started to stand. "Don't get up." I crossed the room quickly, and she sank back into the chair with visible relief. Up close, I could see she was probably beautiful once, before the cancer. Good bone structure, delicate features. She looked nothing like me. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Victoria said softly. "I wasn't sure I would either." Catherine had disappeared, leaving us alone. I sat on the sofa across from Victoria, and for a moment we just looked at each other. 2 women whose lives had collided because of one child. "I've imagined this meeting 1,000 different ways," Victoria said. "In some versions you scream at me. In others you understand. But in all of them, I get to thank you for raising my son." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't thank me for doing what any mother would do. And don't act like you gave me a gift when you and David conspired to lie to me about where my child came from." Victoria flinched but nodded. "You're right. I'm sorry. Why did you take the money? The question came out harder than I intended, but I needed to know. Victoria looked down at her hands, skeletal and bruised from repeated insertions. Because I was 19 and terrified, she said quietly. My family is wealthy. Catherine made sure I never wanted for anything growing up. But when I got pregnant, I was in college, halfway across the country, involved with a man who turned out to be married. When I told him about the baby, he gave me money for an abortion and blocked my number. She took a shaky breath. I couldn't tell my parents. My father had just died and my mother was barely holding it together. I felt so alone. And then Richard Bennett contacted me through a campus counselor I'd spoken to. He said he had a couple who desperately wanted a child, who would give my baby a loving home. He made it sound like a miracle. And the money? Richard said it was standard. Compensation for medical expenses, recovery time, the disruption to my education. $20,000 felt like a fortune to a scared college student. And the monthly payments, he called them transitional support. Said it would help me get back on my feet, finish school, start my life over. But you kept taking the money for 3 years. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Because I was drowning in guilt. Every single payment felt like blood money, but I kept cashing the checks because I thought if I was suffering financially, if I was struggling, then maybe it would hurt less. Maybe it would feel more like a real sacrifice. I know that doesn't make sense. Why did you stop? I got diagnosed. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, metastasized to my liver. They gave me 6 months, maybe a year with aggressive treatment. She wiped at her eyes with a tissue Catherine had left on the side table. Suddenly, money didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except the things I'd left undone. And the biggest thing, the only thing that really mattered, was Noah. I felt my own eyes burning. He thinks you didn't want him. Victoria's face crumpled. No, Emma, that's not true. I wanted him so much. But I was a child myself with no support system, no partner, no resources. My mother didn't even know I was pregnant until after I'd already given him away. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought he'd be better off with a stable couple who could give him everything I couldn't. David told me he showed you our profile, I said. Photos of us, our home, our life. Is that true? Yes. You looked so happy together. So in love. You had a beautiful house, good jobs, family nearby. Everything I couldn't provide. She paused. Was any of that real? I thought about the photos David had probably shown her. Photos from our early marriage, when we were genuinely happy. Before infertility and depression, and the slow erosion of everything we'd built. It was real then, I said honestly. But it's not real anymore. David and I are getting divorced. Victoria's eyes widened. Because of this? No. This just accelerated something that was already happening. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear a lawnmower, the mundane sounds of suburban life continuing while inside this house. A dying woman fought for a chance to know her son. What do you want from Noah? I asked. Really? Not the sanitized version you told Catherine. What do you actually want? Victoria met my eyes. I want to meet him. I want to tell him I'm sorry for giving him away, and that I've thought about him every single day for 7 years. I want to know what he likes, what makes him laugh, what he's afraid of. I want to give him a letter I've written, explaining everything, that he can read when he's older and better able to understand. She paused, her voice breaking. And I want to tell him that giving him life was the best thing I ever did, even if raising him was something I couldn't do. I want him to know he was loved from the very beginning, that he wasn't a mistake or an inconvenience, that he was wanted desperately, just not by someone who was capable of being a mother at 19. Tears were streaming down both our faces now. He asked me if you were bad, I said. If that's why David didn't want him to meet you. What did you tell him? That you were sick and that you made a loving choice 7 years ago. That you wanted to meet him before you died. Victoria nodded slowly. Thank you for that. Thank you for not poisoning him against me. I won't lie to him, I said firmly. About you, about David, about any of this. He deserves the truth. I agree. I studied her, this woman who'd given birth to my son, and tried to separate my anger at David from my feelings about her. It wasn't easy. Part of me wanted to blame her for accepting the money, for not fighting to keep Noah, for creating this impossible situation. But another part of me, the part that had been 19 once, the part that remembered the terror of my miscarriages and the desperation to have a child, that part understood. If I bring Noah here, I said slowly, there will be rules. Of course. You don't get to confuse him about who his mother is. I am his mother. You gave birth to him, but I raised him. I understand. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. No talks about future visits or being part of his life long-term. This is goodbye, Victoria. It has to be because you're dying. She nodded, more tears flowing. I know. And if at any point he seems overwhelmed or upset, the visit ends. His emotional well-being comes first. Always. Agreed. I took a deep breath. Okay. I'll bring him. But not today. I need to go home, explain everything to him properly, prepare him for what he's going to see. You're very sick, Victoria. He needs to understand that. When? This weekend. I'll book flights for Saturday. That gives you a few days to rest, to prepare, and it gives me time to help Noah process all of this. Thank you, Victoria whispered. Emma, thank you so much. I stood up, suddenly desperate to leave this house and this woman and this impossible situation. Don't thank me yet. You haven't met him. He might not want to talk to you. He might be angry or scared or he might be exactly as wonderful as I've imagined for 7 years, Victoria interrupted gently. And that will be enough. Just to see him, to meet him, to tell him I love him, that will be enough. Catherine reappeared as if summoned, escorting me to the door. On the porch, she grabbed my hand. You're giving my daughter the only thing she wants before she dies, Catherine said, her voice fierce. Whatever happens with David, whatever legal battles come, know that this kindness will mean everything. I didn't tell her that I wasn't being kind. I was being necessary. Noah had questions that deserved answers, and Victoria had very little time left to provide them. The flight home felt longer than the flight out. I spent it crafting and discarding various ways to explain all of this to Noah. How do you tell a 7-year-old that his birth mother is dying? How do you prepare him to say goodbye to someone he's never met? When I got home, it was after dinner. Claire met me at the door with a warning look. David came home early, she whispered. He and Noah had a talk. I don't know what was said, but Noah's been in his room since. My stomach dropped. Is he okay? I don't know. He wouldn't talk to me. I found David in the kitchen, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. He looked up when I entered, his eyes red. You went, he said. Not a question. I went. Richard says we can file for an injunction. Prevent any contact between Noah and Victoria on the grounds that it would be psychologically harmful. Are you going to do that? He took another drink. I told Noah the truth. About everything. The money, the lies, the forged signature. All of it. I felt the blood drain from my face. You did what? He deserved to know what kind of woman gave him away. Someone who sold her baby for cash. David, he's 7. He's old enough to know the truth. David slammed the bottle down. You think you're protecting him by introducing him to Victoria? You're setting him up for trauma. She's going to die, Emma, and he's going to watch her die, and he's going to spend the rest of his life wondering why everyone he loves abandons him. Or, I said coldly, he's going to spend the rest of his life knowing that even in the hardest circumstances, his birth mother loved him enough to make an impossible choice. And he's going to know that when she was dying, his parents cared enough about his needs to let him meet her. I won't allow it. It's not up to you anymore. I walked past him to Noah's room, my heart hammering. I knocked softly, and after a moment heard his small voice. Come in. He was sitting on his bed, still dressed, hugging his knees to his chest. His face was blotchy and tear-stained, and when he looked up at me, there was something in his expression that broke my heart. Betrayal. Noah. I started, but he cut me off. Dad said Victoria sold me. Like I was a thing at a store. I sat down next to him, choosing my words carefully. Victoria accepted money to help with medical bills and living expenses while she recovered from giving birth. That's not the same as selling you, baby. But she took money to give me away. She took money to make sure she could survive after making the hardest decision of her life. I pulled him close, and after a moment's resistance, he leaned into me. Noah, Victoria was 19, barely older than a kid herself. She had no family support, no partner, no way to take care of a baby. She could have had an abortion. That would have been easier. But she didn't. She chose to have you, to give you life, and then to give you to people she thought could provide a better home. Dad says I shouldn't meet her. That she'll just hurt me. What do you think? He was quiet for a long time. Then, I think I want to meet her. Even if it's sad. Even if she dies after. I want to know where I came from. I kissed the top of his head. Then we'll go. This Saturday. Just you and me. We'll fly to Portland and meet Victoria. And whatever happens, we'll deal with it together. Promise you won't leave me? The question pierced straight through me. Noah, look at me. I tilted his chin up. I will never ever leave you. You are my son. Nothing, not the adoption, not the divorce, not anything, will change that. Do you understand? He nodded, but I could see the fear still lurking in his eyes. David's poison was working, planting seeds of doubt about everyone Noah trusted. That night, after Noah finally fell asleep, I sat alone in the guest room and called my lawyer. Not for the divorce, but for something else entirely. I need to know my rights, I told her. My husband adopted a child without my full knowledge or consent. He forged my signature on some documents and tricked me into signing others while I was on medication. I want to know if I have any grounds to fight for custody if he tries to use the adoption against me. She was quiet for a long moment. Emma, what you're describing is adoption fraud. That's a serious legal matter. But proving it after 7 years, especially when you've been acting as the child's mother all this time, it's complicated. Can David prevent me from taking Noah to meet his birth mother? If you're both listed as adoptive parents with equal rights, then no, he can't unilaterally stop you. But he could file for emergency custody if he claims you're endangering the child. Meeting his dying birth mother isn't endangerment. A judge would likely agree with you. But David could drag this out in court, make it expensive and traumatic. Is that what you want? I want my son to have closure, I said. And I want to stop living a lie. After I hung up, I lay in the dark, thinking about the chain reaction Catherine had started when she walked into that coffee shop. One woman, one revelation, and suddenly everything was falling apart. Or maybe it was finally falling into truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Catherine told me you're bringing Noah on Saturday. I don't have words for how grateful I am. I've started writing him a letter for when he's older. Thank you, Emma. For everything. I didn't respond. I wasn't doing this for Victoria's gratitude. I was doing it because Noah deserved to know his story, all of it, even the complicated parts. Especially the complicated parts. Because the truth, no matter how messy, was better than the prettiest lie. And come Saturday morning, when I packed our bags and held Noah's hand as we walked past David sitting stone-faced in the living room, when I buckled my son into the car and drove toward the airport, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like Noah's real mother. Not because I'd given birth to him, but because I was giving him something more valuable than DNA. I was giving him the truth. Saturday morning dawned gray and cold, Seattle weather seeping into my bones as I helped Noah pack his backpack for the trip. He moved slowly, methodically, placing his favorite stuffed elephant and a drawing he'd made into the front pocket. Is this for Victoria? I asked, gesturing to the drawing. He nodded. It's our family. See, that's me, and that's you, and that's Dad. He pointed to 3 stick figures holding hands. Then his finger moved to a 4th figure he'd drawn slightly apart from the others. And that's Victoria. I didn't know what she looked like, so I just drew her anyway. My throat tightened. That's beautiful, buddy. David hadn't spoken to us all morning. He'd stayed in the master bedroom with the door closed, and when I knocked to tell him we were leaving, he simply said, I'll be calling Richard while you're gone. Don't expect this to be over when you get back. I'd expected threats, legal posturing, maybe even an attempt to physically stop us from leaving. Instead, there was just cold silence, somehow more disturbing than anger. The flight to Portland was short, but felt interminable. Noah pressed his face against the window during takeoff, watching Seattle shrink below us, and then turned to me with an expression of profound worry. Mom, what if she doesn't like me? Oh, sweetheart. She already loves you. She's loved you since before you were born. But what if I say something wrong? What if I'm not what she remembers? Noah, she doesn't remember you. You were 2 days old when she last saw you. She just wants to meet who you are now. He thought about this for a moment. What if I cry? Then you cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. Will you stay with me the whole time? Every single second, if that's what you want. He nodded, then leaned his head against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around him, this child who was mine in every way that mattered, as we flew toward a meeting that would reshape all of our lives. Catherine met us at the airport, her face lighting up when she saw Noah. I watched her take him in, the dark hair, the brown eyes, the way he held himself with a curious mixture of confidence and uncertainty. You must be Noah, she said gently, crouching down to his level. I'm Catherine. I'm Victoria's mother, which makes me your. She paused, and I could see her struggling with the label. Grandmother? No, that was too presumptuous. Birth grandmother? Too clinical. You're Victoria's mom, Noah finished for her, and she smiled gratefully. Exactly. The drive to the house took 20 minutes. Noah was quiet, staring out the window, his small hand gripping mine tightly. When we pulled up to the yellow Craftsman, I felt his whole body tense. I'm scared, he whispered. I know. That's okay. We can turn around right now if you want. He shook his head firmly. No. I want to meet her. I'm just scared. Courage isn't not being scared, I told him. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. He squared his little shoulders and nodded. Okay, let's go. Victoria was waiting in the living room again, but this time she'd made an effort to look less sick. She wore a soft pink cardigan, and the beanie had been replaced with a delicate scarf. Someone had applied light makeup to her face, bringing some color to her cheeks. But nothing could hide how thin she was, how her hands trembled slightly as she stood up when we entered. And then she saw Noah. I watched her face transform, shock, joy, grief, love, all cascading across her features in the span of seconds. Tears immediately started streaming down her face, and she pressed one hand to her mouth. Oh, she breathed. Oh my God. Noah looked up at me uncertainly, and I squeezed his hand. Victoria, I said quietly, this is Noah. For a long moment no one moved. Then Noah, with the simple bravery that children somehow possess, walked forward and extended his hand. He said. I brought you a picture. Victoria took his hand carefully, like she was afraid he might shatter, then accepted the drawing he pulled from his backpack. She looked at it for a long moment, fresh tears flowing. This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me, she said, her voice breaking. That's you. Noah pointed to the fourth stick figure. I didn't know how to draw you, but Mom said you have brown eyes like me, so I used the brown crayon. It's perfect. Victoria carefully folded the drawing and held it against her chest. Then she gestured to the couch. Would you like to sit down? I made cookies. Well, Catherine made cookies. I'm not very good at cooking right now. We settled onto the couch, Noah in the middle, me on one side, Victoria in her chair opposite us. Catherine brought out cookies and juice, then quietly disappeared, giving us privacy. For a few minutes we just sat there. Noah munched on a cookie, sneaking glances at Victoria when he thought she wasn't looking. Victoria openly stared at him, drinking in every detail like a woman dying of thirst. You look different than I thought you would, Noah said finally. Different how? Smaller. Sadder. He paused. Mom said you're sick. Victoria nodded. Very sick. I have cancer, which is a disease that makes your body stop working the way it should. Are you going to die? The bluntness of children. I started to intervene, but Victoria held up a hand. Yes, she said simply. Probably soon. That's why I wanted to meet you now, before I couldn't anymore. Noah processed this with remarkable calm. Does it hurt? Sometimes. But meeting you doesn't hurt. Meeting you is the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time. Even though you gave me away? The question hung in the air, sharp and necessary. I watched Victoria carefully, wondering how she would answer. Especially because I gave you away, she said softly. Noah, I need you to understand something. I didn't give you away because I didn't want you. I gave you away because I loved you so much that I wanted you to have a better life than I could give you. But you could have kept me. Lots of people raise babies by themselves. You're right. They do. But I was 19 in college with no job and no family support. I could barely take care of myself. And I wanted you to have everything. A stable home, 2 parents who loved each other, opportunities one couldn't provide. I thought I was doing the right thing. Was it the right thing? Victoria looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. I gave a small nod. I don't know, she admitted. I thought so at the time. But now, seeing you, knowing I won't get to watch you grow up, see you graduate or fall in love, or do all the things I imagined, I honestly don't know. All I know is that I did what I thought was best for you, and I've carried you in my heart every single day since. Noah was quiet, absorbing this. Then, Dad said you took money from me. Like you sold me. I saw Victoria's face crumple, and Catherine must have been listening because she immediately appeared in the doorway, defensive. Noah, that's not what happened, Catherine started, but Victoria shook her head. Let me explain. She leaned forward carefully, meeting Noah's eyes. Yes, I accepted money. $20,000 when you were born, and then monthly payments after. Your dad, David, he's not wrong about that. Victoria. I started to interrupt to soften it, but she held up her hand again. No, Emma. He deserves the truth. She focused back on Noah. I took that money because I was scared and alone and I thought it would help me start over. But you know what? Every single time I cashed one of those checks, I felt sick. Because it felt like I was putting a price on you. And you don't have a price. You're priceless. Then why did you keep taking it? Because I was weak. Because I was ashamed. Because it was easier to take the money and try to forget than to face what I'd done. Her voice broke. I'm not proud of that, Noah. I'm not proud of any of it. The only thing I'm proud of is you, that I gave you life, that I made sure you went to a good home, that you became this incredible person. Noah looked at her for a long moment, his face serious beyond his years. Then he said something that made both Victoria and me start crying. I forgive you. Victoria let out a sob, covering her face with her hands. You don't have to. I want to, Noah insisted. Mom says everyone makes mistakes. And that real love means forgiving people when they mess up. He glanced at me. Right, Mom? I nodded, unable to speak. Noah stood up and walked over to Victoria's chair. Without hesitation, he climbed into her lap, carefully like he understood she was fragile, and wrapped his arms around her neck. It's okay to be sad, he whispered into her ear. Mom says that too. Victoria held him like he was made of spun glass, her whole body shaking with sobs. Catherine was crying in the doorway. I was crying on the couch. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the collective sound of breaking and healing happening simultaneously. They stayed like that for several minutes. Then Noah pulled back and looked at Victoria seriously. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you want to know about me? Like who I am now? More than anything in the world. And just like that, the ice broke. Noah started talking, about school, his friends, his favorite superhero, Spider-Man obviously, his soccer team, the time he fell off his bike and needed stitches, his collection of rocks from different beaches. Victoria listened to every word like it was poetry, asking questions, laughing at his jokes, marveling at his insights. I watched them together and saw it, the resemblance I'd missed before. They had the same laugh, the same way of tilting their heads when thinking, the same expressive hands that gestured constantly while talking. After about an hour, Victoria started to fade. I could see exhaustion creeping into her features, the pain she was trying to hide becoming harder to mask. Noah, I said gently, I think Victoria needs to rest soon. He looked at her with concern. Are you tired? A little, she admitted. But I don't want you to leave. We can come back tomorrow, Noah said immediately, looking at me for confirmation. Right, Mom? I'd only booked us for one day, but looking at Noah's hopeful face and Victoria's desperate expression, I knew we weren't leaving Portland tonight. Right, I agreed. We'll get a hotel and come back tomorrow. Will you be here tomorrow? Noah asked Victoria. You won't die tonight? The question was so earnest, so heartbreaking, that Victoria smiled through new tears. I'll be here tomorrow, she promised. And I'll have a letter for you. A long letter explaining everything I want you to know, that you can read when you're older. I can read now, Noah said proudly. I'm a really good reader. Then maybe you can read it tonight with your mom. But some of it might not make sense until you're older. Okay. Noah hesitated, then leaned forward and hugged her again, quick and fierce. I'm glad I met you. Even if you're sick. Even if you die. I'm glad I know who you are. I'm glad too, Noah. So glad. We said our goodbyes, Catherine walking us out, pressing a hotel recommendation into my hand along with her personal phone number. Call me if you need anything, she whispered. Anything at all. In the rental car, Noah was quiet for a long time. Then, Mom. Yeah, buddy. I still love Dad. Even though he lied. Is that okay? My heart broke a little. Of course it's okay. You can love someone and still be hurt by what they did. Love is complicated. Everything is complicated, he said wisely then. But Victoria isn't complicated. She's just sad. Yes, I agreed. She's very sad. Because she's dying or because she gave me away? Both, I think. He nodded, processing. I'm going to make her something tonight. At the hotel. A card or something. So she has it when she, dies. I had to pull over because I was crying too hard to drive safely. Noah unbuckled and climbed into my lap, hugging me tight while I sobbed into his hair. It's okay, Mom, he said, patting my back the way I'd patted his countless times. Everything is going to be okay. But I wasn't sure it would be. Because while we'd been in Portland, watching Noah meet his birth mother, David had been making calls. And when I checked my phone in the hotel parking lot, there were 17 missed calls and a single text message that made my blood run cold. Emergency custody hearing scheduled for Monday 9 a.m. Richard has evidence that you're psychologically unstable and endangering Noah. If you're not back by Sunday night, I'm calling the police to report a kidnapping. This is your only warning. That night, in our hotel room, Noah sat at the small desk working on his card for Victoria while I paced the room, phone pressed to my ear, talking to my lawyer. He can't do this, I said, trying to keep my voice down. He can't claim I kidnapped my own son. Technically, if he's the primary adoptive parent and he didn't consent to you leaving the state with Noah, he could make that argument, my lawyer said carefully. Emma, you need to come back immediately. Tonight, if possible. We're seeing Victoria again tomorrow. Noah needs this closure. Noah needs his mother to not lose custody. David is playing hardball now. He's filed a motion claiming you're having a mental health crisis, that you're making impulsive decisions without considering Noah's well-being, that you're exposing him to traumatic situations. Meeting his birth mother isn't traumatic. A judge might disagree, especially if David presents it as you forcing a 7-year-old to watch a woman die of cancer. Emma, I know this isn't fair, but you need to think strategically. Come home, show up for the hearing, prove you're the stable parent. I looked at Noah, carefully drawing hearts on his card, his tongue poking out in concentration. One more day, I said. We'll fly back tomorrow night. That gives me Sunday to prepare. Emma. One more day. Victoria is dying. Noah deserves to say goodbye properly. After I hung up, I sat on the bed and opened the envelope Victoria had given me as we left. The letter she'd written for Noah. She'd said he could read it with me, that some of it would make more sense when he was older. I unfolded the pages and began to read. Dear Noah, if you're reading this, it means we've met. It means I got my miracle. I got to see your face, hear your voice, know who you became. And it means I'm either gone or going soon. There are things I need you to know, things I can't say out loud but I can write down. First, I loved your father. Not David, your biological father. His name was James, and when I met him, I thought he was the answer to everything. He was older, sophisticated, attentive in ways that made a 19-year-old girl feel special. I didn't know he was married. By the time I found out, I was pregnant and he was gone. I could have had an abortion. Many people told me I should. But the moment I found out you existed, I couldn't do it. You were already real to me. Already mine. Already loved. The pregnancy was hard, not physically but emotionally. I was alone, scared, ashamed. I hid it from my family until I couldn't anymore. When my mother found out, she wanted me to give you up immediately. She had it all planned. I'd take a semester off, go to a facility upstate, have the baby, sign the papers, and come home like it never happened. But I couldn't do that either. I carried you for 9 months, and every day I talked to you. I sang to you. I made promises I didn't know if I could keep. I told you that whatever happened, you would be loved. That I would make sure you had a good life, even if I couldn't be the one to give it to you. When you were born, they let me hold you for 2 hours. I memorized everything, your weight in my arms, the sound of your breathing, the way your hand wrapped around my finger. I named you Noah because it means rest or peace, and I hoped you would find both in your life. When Richard Bennett came with the papers, I almost couldn't do it. I almost ran out of that hospital with you, consequences be damned. But then I looked at your face, so perfect and innocent, and I thought about what I could give you versus what Emma and David could give you. I thought I was choosing love over selfishness. Now I wonder if I was choosing fear over courage. The money, I took it because I was weak and because Richard made it sound normal. But every dollar felt like betrayal. When I finally stopped taking the payments 3 years later, it wasn't because I was noble. It was because I couldn't stand my own reflection anymore. I've lived 7 years with this choice. 7 years of wondering if you were happy, if you were loved, if you remembered me somehow even though you were too young to remember. 7 years of second-guessing, of grief, of trying to build a life around this Noah-shaped hole in my heart. And then I got sick. When the doctor told me I had 6 months, maybe a year, my first thought wasn't fear. It was regret. Regret that I'd never know you. That I'd die without telling you I'm sorry, I love you, I've always loved you. So I asked my mother to find you. And she did. And here we are. I don't know what Emma has told you about me. I don't know what David has said. But I need you to know these truths. I did not abandon you because I didn't want you. I thought about you every single day. I tried to be the mother you deserved by finding you a better mother. I failed you in some ways, but I never stopped loving you. When you get older, when you're 15 or 25 or 45, you might have questions I can't answer because I'll be gone. You might be angry that I gave you away. You might wish you could meet me, really know me, understand my choice. All I can tell you is this: I was 19, terrified, alone, and I did the best I could with the worst situation. I chose your life over mine, your future over my present. And seeing you today, seeing the person you're becoming, I know I made the right choice. Even if it broke me. You are loved, Noah. By me, by Emma, by Catherine, by everyone who's had the privilege of knowing you. Don't let anyone tell you that being adopted makes you less than. Don't let anyone use it to hurt you. Your story is complicated, but complicated doesn't mean broken. I wish I could watch you grow up. I wish I could see you graduate, fall in love, have your own family someday. I wish I could be there for scraped knees and heartbreaks and victories. But I can't. All I can do is love you from wherever I end up, and hope that somewhere, somehow you feel it. Thank you for meeting me. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for existing. You are my greatest accomplishment and my deepest regret, all at once. I love you. I've always loved you. I'll always love you. Your biological mother. Victoria. P.S. There's a trust fund. Catherine set it up. It's for your education, your future. David doesn't know about it, and he doesn't need to. It's from me to you, no strings attached. When you turn 18, you'll get access. Use it however you want. Buy a car. Go to college. Travel the world. Just know that even in this, I was thinking of you. By the time I finished reading, I was crying so hard I could barely see the page. Noah had stopped drawing and was staring at me with worried eyes. Mom, are you okay? Yeah, baby. Come here. He climbed onto the bed with me, and I read him the letter, editing out the parts about David and the money, focusing on Victoria's love and regret. By the end, we were both crying. She really loved me, Noah said wonderingly. She really, really did. And she set up money for college? Yes. That's cool. He was quiet for a moment. Mom, when Victoria dies, will you die too? The question caught me off guard. What? No, honey. I'm healthy. I'm not going anywhere. But what if you get sick like Victoria? I pulled him close. Everyone dies eventually, Noah. But I'm planning to be around for a very, very long time. Long enough to drive you crazy as a teenager and embarrass you at your wedding. He giggled weakly, then grew serious again. When Victoria dies, can we go to her funeral? If that's what you want, yes. I want to. He paused. And Mom, after she dies, can we tell Dad we forgive him? Like I forgave Victoria? I hadn't expected that. You want to forgive Dad? He lied because he was scared too. Like Victoria. Everyone's just scared and making mistakes. Noah looked up at me with eyes far too wise for 7. And I'm tired of everyone being sad all the time. Out of the mouths of babes. Okay, I whispered. We'll try. That night, Noah fell asleep clutching his card for Victoria, and I stayed awake planning how to survive the custody hearing, how to protect my son, how to navigate the impossible situation David had created. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Victoria had a good day today. Best she's had in weeks. Thank you for bringing Noah. You gave her a gift beyond measure. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I looked at Noah sleeping peacefully beside me, his face relaxed in a way I rarely saw anymore. And I made a decision. We would see Victoria tomorrow. We would let Noah say goodbye properly. We would face whatever legal consequences David wanted to throw at us. Because some things, like a dying woman meeting her son, like giving a child closure, like choosing truth over fear, were worth fighting for. Even if it cost me everything. Sunday morning, we returned to the yellow house. Victoria was worse, visibly declining even from yesterday. She was in bed now, too weak to get up, but she smiled when Noah entered the room. You came back, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I made you something. Noah carefully placed his card on her lap. It's not as good as a real present, but it's perfect. Victoria opened it with trembling hands. Inside, Noah had drawn another picture. This time of Victoria holding baby Noah in the hospital. Below it, in his careful 7-year-old handwriting, he'd written, Thank you for picking my mom and dad. I had a good life. I hope you get to have peace now. Love, Noah. Victoria read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face, before she looked up at him. Noah, I need to tell you something important. Can you listen carefully? He nodded, climbing onto the bed beside her. When I die, and it's going to be soon, probably in the next few weeks, I want you to remember that death isn't the end of love. I'll still love you from wherever I go. And every time you do something kind or brave or good, that's me loving you through you. Okay, Noah whispered. And I need you to take care of your mom, Emma. She's a good woman. Better than she knows. Don't let your dad make her feel small. Noah glanced at me, then back at Victoria. I won't. Promise me you'll have a good life. Promise me you'll be happy. That's all I want. I promise. Victoria pulled him into a hug, and they stayed like that for a long time. A dying woman and the son she'd given away, holding onto each other like they could stop time through sheer force of will. When we finally left, Victoria was asleep, Noah's card clutched to her chest. Catherine walked us to the car, her face drawn with exhaustion and grief. She won't last much longer, Catherine said quietly. Maybe days. A week at most. But you gave her everything she needed. She's at peace now. Will you call me? I asked. When it happens? Yes. And Emma. Catherine gripped my hand. Whatever happens with your husband, whatever legal battles come, know that you did the right thing. For Noah, for Victoria, for all of us. That matters. The flight home was quiet. Noah slept most of the way, exhausted from emotion. I spent it preparing for war. Because when we landed in Seattle and turned on our phones, there were messages from David, from his lawyer, from my lawyer, all saying variations of the same thing. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., a judge would decide if I was fit to parent my son. And David was going to do everything in his power to prove I wasn't. But I had something David didn't have. The truth, a son who loved me, and the strength of a woman who'd just watched another woman say goodbye to a child she'd never stopped loving. David had started this war with lies. I was going to end it with truth. And whatever the judge decided tomorrow, I would know I'd done the right thing. Even if it cost me everything, I'd given Noah what he needed most. His story, complete and unvarnished, full of love and loss and complicated truths. And that was worth any price. To be continued in the comments. Actually, wait. Let me give you the real ending. Monday morning, I walked into that courtroom with Noah beside me and my lawyer on my other side. David sat across the aisle with Richard, both of them in expensive suits, both looking confident. But when the judge asked Noah if he wanted to speak, my 7-year-old son stood up and said, "My mom didn't hurt me by taking me to meet Victoria. She saved me. Because now I know my whole story. And my whole story means I know I was loved enough to be born, and loved enough to be given to good parents, and loved enough that my mom took me to say goodbye even when my dad said no. That's not a bad mom. That's a brave mom." The judge looked at Noah for a long moment, then at David, then at me. "Motion for emergency custody denied," she said. "Pending the divorce proceedings, joint custody remains in effect. But Mr. Hartley, I suggest you consider what's best for your son moving forward, because from where I'm sitting, your wife just demonstrated remarkable parenting judgment." 3 weeks later, Victoria died peacefully, with Catherine holding her hand. We went to the funeral, me, Noah, and eventually David too. Because Noah was right. Everyone was just scared and making mistakes. And love, real love, meant forgiving people when they messed up, holding on to truth even when it hurt, and choosing courage over fear. Every single time.